In 1968, young Iris and her fiancé Paul went to the opening of the Skyview restaurant. That night, Paul proposed to her and put a ring on her finger. Just then, Iris noticed something strange. A boy above them tossed a coin, and it looked like death itself blew on. The coin slipped into a ventilation shaft and jammed a fan. Inside the tower, people kept dancing happily, not realizing that cracks were spreading on the glass floor. As Iris and Paul moved forward, the metal supports below began to snap apart. Bolts loosened one by one until the jammed coin caused a fan blade to break. The broken blade hit a gas pipe, and gas began to leak into the air. Iris felt uneasy, but before she could react, Paul fell through the floor. People screamed as they dropped one after another, grabbing at beams to save themselves. Workers on the ground saw what was happening and ran in fear. Paul managed to hang onto a thick glass panel, and Iris begged for help, but no one came. She reached out for Paul, but his grip gave way, and he fell. Panic spread everywhere. A woman caught fire and ran straight into the leaking gas, causing a massive explosion. The flames chased those still alive. Iris narrowly escaped the flames. Staff ordered everyone to evacuate. The same boy who had thrown the coin ran ahead, leading the crowd, but the emergency walkway collapsed, killing everyone on it. Somehow, the boy survived. The rest of the group tried to escape through the elevator, pushing each other violently. In the chaos, an old man pushed Iris aside to get in, but the doors jammed with him halfway. The overloaded elevator gave out, crushing him. Iris tried to stay calm and search for another way, but the stress began to hurt her pregnancy. She noticed the floor tilting and the ceiling starting to split. Quickly, she climbed upward to survive, but others slid down as the ground split apart. They fell onto the thick glass below. One woman thought she was safe until a piano above tipped over. A coin dropped onto it, and the piano came crashing down, crushing her. Soon after, the boy who had smiled smugly also got crushed by the falling piano. Iris grieved Paul, but she spotted another boy in danger and rushed to save him. At that moment, the building began collapsing. She barely managed to hang onto a piece of metal, but she realized it wasn't her hand holding her. It was her engagement ring hooked onto the steel. The fragile hold broke, and she fell into the flames below. Stefanie woke up from this nightmare in class, but it wasn't just any nightmare. She had been having the same dream for 2 months. She told her roommate about it, saying the woman in the dream was called Iris, her grandmother's name. But Stefanie had never met Iris and didn't even know if she was alive. Her roommate suggested she go home and ask her family about it, hoping the dreams would stop. When Stefanie went home, she asked her father, Marty, about Iris. Marty looked uneasy and forced a smile, clearly hiding something. At that moment, Stefanie's younger brother, Charlie, said he was leaving to visit their cousins. Stefanie decided to go with Charlie. Before they left, Marty warned them not to bring up Iris with their relatives. This only made Stefanie more curious. What had really happened to Iris? If the woman in her dream was Iris and something terrible happened, then how did her mom come into the picture? When Stefanie and Charlie arrived at their cousin's house, she went straight to her Uncle Howard. She wanted to know more about her mother, Darlene. Howard looked shocked and quickly changed the subject. But when Stefanie mentioned the place from her dreams, the Skyview restaurant, Howard and his wife Brenda froze. Stefanie kept pressing them for answers. Her cousins also got interested and wanted to know the truth. Finally, Howard and Brenda admitted Iris wasn't dead, but she had suffered a mental breakdown. To them, Iris might as well have been gone. Stefanie wanted to meet Iris herself, believing that would stop her nightmare. Howard, clearly frustrated, explained that after their father died, Iris lost control. She wouldn't let her siblings go to school, locked them in the house, and lived in constant fear they would die. Eventually, the police took her away. Even after that, Iris didn't let go. She kept tracking their progress in foster care. When Howard and Brenda later had kids of their own, Eric, Julia, and Bobby, Iris began sending them disturbing letters. These letters were filled with warnings and pictures of dead bodies. It frightened them so much that they cut off all contact and moved away. Stefanie begged to see the letters, but Howard and Brenda refused. After much pleading, Brenda secretly told her where they were hidden. When Stefanie found the letters, she was stunned. The woman in the photos looked exactly like the one in her dreams. This meant her nightmares were not just dreams. They were real. Determined, Stefanie drove off alone to look for Iris. The address led her to a remote cabin in the mountains. At the door, she spoke to Iris through an intercom. Iris told her to leave right away. But when Stefanie explained she was her granddaughter, Iris agreed to let her in, but only after checking her pockets to make sure she wasn't carrying anything dangerous. The heavy door opened, and Stefanie carefully stepped inside. The house was full of strange traps. Even the roof had spikes. Iris explained it was all protection against hidden danger. As Stefanie walked slowly forward, Iris nervously told her to close the door quickly. A fire extinguisher suddenly fell outside, and Iris warned her not to touch anything. Anything could set off a deadly trap. At last, Iris saw her granddaughter's face and smiled warmly. She asked about Stefanie's mother, Darlene. Stefanie told her she hadn't lived with her mother since she was 10 and had no idea how Darlene was now. Stefanie then asked about her nightmares. Iris told her they weren't just dreams. Years ago, she had seen the future. She saw a huge disaster coming. She had been with Paul on the rooftop of the Skyview. A woman's hat blew off and a boy wanted to toss a coin. Security tried to stop him, but he insisted. At that moment, Paul was about to propose to her. Iris suddenly realized the building would collapse and everyone would die. She rushed to stop the boy and grabbed the coin from his hand, the key object that would start the butterfly effect. She ran downstairs, saw people dancing, and grabbed a microphone. She shouted for everyone to look at the floor. At first, people tried to stop her, but others saw the cracks spreading beneath their feet. That night, many lives were saved. The building never collapsed. The restaurant was later shut down, but Iris knew she had interrupted Death's plan, and Death was not pleased. Years later, Death returned and took the lives of everyone who had been at the Skyview that night, including Paul. Iris had learned how to sense when death was near. For years she had been stopping accidents, but now her time had come. She had cancer. While talking with Stefanie, Iris finally relaxed. That was when Death made its move. A magnifying glass caught the sunlight and focused it onto a rope. Smoke began to rise. Iris believed Stefanie's dreams meant she might have inherited her gift. Suddenly, Iris felt something was wrong. She turned her head and saw the setup. She quickly knocked the magnifying glass aside, ruining Death's trick. Death thought Iris would be distracted because her granddaughter was with her, but Iris told Stefanie to stay and learn the basics. She said it was too dangerous outside. Iris herself hadn't stepped outside in 20 years, but Stefanie didn't want to stay. She needed to return to school. Iris warned her that Death was coming for their family. Stefanie shook her head. To her, it was only a dream. She didn't believe. She left without hesitation. Before she could go, Iris begged her to take a book. Iris had a sudden vision. She saw the signs, the wind, the compass, objects that would trigger events. She knew she would die if she left the house, but to protect Stefanie, she went out anyway. She threw the book into Stefanie's arms and told her again it could save them. Stefanie still didn't believe her, so Iris told her to watch. She would prove it was real. A gust of wind came. It knocked the compass. The compass hit a fire extinguisher. The extinguisher shot forward and pierced Iris through the mouth. This time, Stefanie believed. Iris was gone. At the funeral, relatives gathered. Stefanie told her father Marty and her uncle Howard that Iris had warned Death was coming for their family. They didn't take her serious. Then, Darlene, Stefanie's mother, showed up. Still angry with her mom, Stefanie walked away. Back home, Stefanie opened the book Iris had given her. At the same time, Howard's family held a barbecue. Everyone laughed and ate, unaware that danger was already around them. Bobby broke a glass, not noticing that a shard had fallen into the ice cubes. Eric set his drink down right next to a gas tank. Small details were lining up. Death was choosing its tool. Soon, everyone sat down to eat and drink, using the ice with the hidden glass shard. Howard raised his glass, saying Iris's death should remind them to enjoy life while they can. They all clinked glasses and drank. Suddenly, Julia began choking. Everyone panicked until she managed to swallow and was fine. Meanwhile, Stefanie kept reading Iris's book. She found a part about the coin at the restaurant and another about a barbecue. At that same moment, Eric lit the grill outside. Bobby called Charlie over to join him on the trampoline, but neither of them noticed the sharp rake hidden beneath it. The book slipped from Stefanie's hands. A heavy sense of danger filled her. Just then, a photo frame fell and shattered. A shard of glass slid across the floor, but whose drink had the deadly piece? Howard drank first. Nothing happened. Then the camera focused on Darlene's glass. Was it hers? At the same time, Stefanie rushed toward Howard's house, sensing something was wrong. She tries calling Charlie. He didn't answer. The trampoline stitches were coming loose. On her way, Stefanie saw a warning sign. Danger ahead. It looked like Death itself was trying to warn her. Then, it's revealed that the glass shard was in her father Marty's drink, but he only takes a little sip and puts it down. Howard also climbs onto the trampoline to jump. The trampoline's surface looked like it could snap at any second, but before anything happened, Darlene spotted the hidden rake. She rushed over, pulled it out, and returned it to the shed. Just then, Brenda accidentally knocked over a bottle. It struck a switch on a nearby machine. Pipes below began to rattle and shake. The same rake from earlier slid down again. By the time Stefanie arrived, Death was ready to begin its performance. Howard walked over to greet Stefanie. At that same moment, Bobby's leg slipped through a weak spot in the trampoline. Julia turned in to look, causing a shard of glass to fall from her cup. Howard stepped right on it. He cried out in pain and stumbled. The rake, which had been sliding earlier, dropped directly onto the running lawnmower. The machine roared forward. Howard lost his balance and falls. The mower charged straight to him and ended his life instantly. The family attended yet another funeral. Stefanie rushed home, desperate for answers. She dug through Iris's notes until she found one marked with a strange message. JB found someone who survived. She began mapping out the connections. Iris and Paul's children, Howard and Darlene. Howard's children, Eric, Julia, Bobby. Darlene's children, Stefanie and Charlie. They were all linked by blood, which meant they were all trapped in Death's design. Stefanie explained it to the others. The deaths were following the same order Iris had once seen on the restaurant's death list. Hundreds should have died that night, but Iris saved them, had broke the cycle. Now Death was taking them one by one. She explained that Death followed a specific order when it came to killing. It started with Howard's family, and then it would move on to Darlene's. Marty and Brenda weren't related by blood, so they were likely safe. That meant the next target was clear. Howard's oldest son, Eric. But no one believed Stefanie. They whispered that she was cursed, obsessed, maybe even losing her mind. One by one, they left her alone. At his workplace, Eric leaned casually against a counter, unaware of the trap being built around him. A spinning fan brushed against a dangling chain. The chain swung forward, hooking perfectly onto Eric's nose ring. He laughed at first, tugging at it, until disinfectant spilled across the floor. The fan kept pulling, tightening the chain around his face. Eric had to stretch onto his tiptoes just to keep from being ripped forward. His foot slipped. He knocked over a desk lamp. The bulb shattered, sparks flew, and the disinfectant caught fire. Flames spread quickly. Eric was trapped, his body straining, his hands clawing desperately at the chain. At the last second, with skin tearing, he yanked the ring free. He fell backward, crashing into another table. More disinfectant spilled. The fire surged. The building exploded. Meanwhile, Stefanie had been calling Eric all night. No answer. Fearing the worst, she grabbed Charlie and ran out to find him. On the road, they nearly got into an accident. Luckily, Eric had survived. He said he escaped by tearing off his burning leather clothing. What happened next made Stefanie to be more convinced now, more than ever, that death was hunting them. But Eric still mocked her warnings, so she decided to shadow him, following Iris's notes and watching out for signs. They ran into Julia on her jogging route. A garbage truck rolled by. Stefanie's instincts kicked in. She pulled Eric back, shouting at him to stay away. But Eric, being reckless, made faces at the truck, mocking the idea. Julia put on her headphones and ran ahead. Just then, Julia slipped and was swept up and thrown into the garbage truck. Eric and Stefanie sprinted after it, horrified. The driver had headphones on and couldn't hear the scream. Stefanie climbed onto the back of the truck. She reached Julia, grabbed her hand, pulled with all her strength, but the machine crushed Julia before she could be saved. That was the moment the family finally believed that death was really coming for them. Brenda broke down and confessed a secret. Eric wasn't Howard's biological son. He had been born from an affair. That might be why Eric had survived when it should have been his turn, which meant the next one in death's path wasn't him. It was Bobby. Stefanie remembered something from Iris's notes. A name, William. Darlene and William knew each other. Together they rushed toward the hospital, hoping they weren't already too late. It turned out William was the same boy Iris had saved years ago. He explained there were only two ways to beat death. Either kill someone to take their place, or die and come back. William warned them that no matter what, everyone on the list would eventually die in the exact order. It sounded terrible, but the truth was worse. He said, "Don't try too hard to change death's plan. If you fail, things will only end in more pain." Then he told them to value whatever time they had left, and he quietly walked away. Eric didn't listen. He thought if Bobby could die and come back, maybe he would survive. He came up with a reckless plan. Make Bobby eat peanuts to trigger his allergy so doctors could bring him back from the edge of death. They went to the vending machine for peanuts, but the bag got stuck. Eric grew frustrated and smashed the glass. He and Bobby even lifted the machine, trying to shake it loose. Finally, they got the peanuts out. But then, when they entered the room next door, they accidentally switched on the MRI scanner. The magnetic pull grew stronger. Eric's piercings were yanked toward the machine. A wheelchair shot across the room. Eric was dragged and crushed against the machine by force. Bobby, who had already eaten the peanuts, was choking out. He tries reaching for the EpiPen in Eric's hand. Just then, a doctor rushed in and opened the door. At that exact moment, a spring from the broken vending machine flew across the room. It pierced straight into Bobby's head. Stefanie, Darlene, and Charlie hugged to each other tight. They finally understood. No matter what they tried, they couldn't stop death. So, they chose to follow Iris's way, risk everything. They drove into the mountains, heading for Iris's old cabin. Along the way, a coin slipped out of the notebook. An old woman picked it up without them knowing. The cabin looked cold and haunted, like death had been waiting for them all along. Stefanie hit the gas and aimed the car straight for it. But halfway there, the car crashed. Her seatbelt buckle jammed, trapping her inside. Now, death's target was Darlene. If she could reach the cabin safely, maybe the curse would stop. But sparks were already flying from a broken roof wire. Just as Darlene reached the cabin door, a huge explosion blasted the car. Stefanie's body plunged into a nearby pond. Charlie is pinned down by wooden boards, injured and struggling. Darlene crawled through the wreckage, freeing Charlie. She begged him to save Stefanie. Just as she said that, a heavy pole came down from above and struck her dead. Charlie rushed to Stefanie, who was unconscious. He pulled her free and managed to revive her. She woke, and they hugged with relief. They laughed nervously. It had to mean she had died and come back. But when Stefanie heard Darlene hadn't survived, she broke down in tears. Only she and Charlie were left from Iris's bloodline. A week later, Charlie and Stefanie visited his girlfriend's house. While fixing Charlie's clothes, Stefanie pricked her finger on a rose thorn. Suddenly, she froze. She remembered her nightmare. Iris had pricked her finger the same way. An old woman dropped a coin. It rolled across the ground and got stuck between train tracks. A train was speeding toward it. Charlie's girlfriend's father, who was a doctor, spoke casually after hearing how Charlie had saved Stefanie. She wasn't really dead, he explained. If your heart never stops, you were just unconscious. To Stefanie and Charlie, those words felt like a curse. Outside, Stefanie spotted a red car, exactly like the one from her dream. Charlie's girlfriend was even wearing the same clothes Iris had worn. The bad feeling in Stefanie's chest grew heavier. Then it happened. The train derailed. The massive crash shook everything. The train tore forward, charging straight at them. Stefanie tripped and fell. Charlie grabbed her, pulling her to her feet. It looked like they had escaped, but it turns out they hadn't. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.